We're going to go through some of the settings that are current in Nexus 4.2.3.0. Once we open up the settings window, you'll notice that we have a general settings tab. And it has a lot of settings in here, but we'll just start from the top. Are your cameras, license scanner, or fingerprint reader not saving pictures? Click here to test permissions. When you click this, essentially what it does is gives you a yes, it's working, or no, it's not. If it's not, it will give you an explanation how to fix it, what the cause is, things like that. If for some reason you need to do an advanced test, you can also click that down here in the lower left. And that'll actually go through and show you every single path and whether it succeeded or failed that it's trying to go through, so you can see where it's breaking at. Typically, if you don't know anything about networking, this is going to be completely useless to you. But for like an IT professional or something like that, this is going to be probably the smoking gun in solving the issue. Generally, things like this are simple to solve. Is just coming down here to your computer and right-clicking on where your Wi-Fi is or your network, and then open Network and Internet Settings. And from here, we're typically going to go Network and Sharing Center. And so once this comes up and you look at the network here, it'll either say private or public. If it says public, that means your computer thinks that you're out like at a coffee shop or an airport. And we ultimately need to switch that. Either way, whether it says that or not, you can go over to the left here under Advanced Sharing Settings. And then for each one of these, start at public. See these little groups. So start here, turn on Network Discovery, turn on File and Printer Sharing. When you go to the next one, turn on Network Discovery, turn on File and Printer Sharing. We're going to go to the next one. Turn on sharing so anyone with network access can read and write files. Leave these two alone. And then the very bottom, turn off password protected sharing. So this is going to stop passwords from being required from computer to computer. On your network, you really don't need it. It's just going to eliminate a lot of problems if you just turn it off. So once you hit save, you can go ahead and close this out, go back to Nexus, test permissions, and now everything working as it should. So that's what that does. Are your cameras showing offline or not working? It says look under devices, your camera statuses will be shown. We'll go over that in 1 second. We'll just go through some of these other options. Can you see all or some of the images on this computer but not others? So in Nexus, if there is a sharing issue, like you showed here with the permissions, if this doesn't work, Nexus automatically defaults to still allowing pictures to be taken, but they save it on your local computer. So that way, when your computers can finally talk again, they can be transferred automatically. So if your computers happen to lose connectivity, they're still taking pictures, don't worry. But once they get reconnected again, just click here to move them when you're ready. And this will go gray, and any kind of errors that happen will pop up. Mine's not actually transferring anywhere, so this is not typical for you to see. But once it's done, it'll go ahead and appear. Is your products list operating slowly? Disable COGS. So COGS is cost of goods sold. It's a pretty labor-intensive algorithm. It can slow down some computers, so if you want to turn it off, go ahead if you're not using it. Otherwise, just leave it off. Customer groups over here. So what customer groups ultimately are is under your customer list itself, if we just pull up anybody, customer group is shown here. And there's some that are built in, like do not buy, MRF, trucking, but the other ones like level 1, level 2, whatever else you want to put in there, they are ultimately in your settings. So under settings, we come back and you can see here we have the ones here that we're just looking at. So that's how you add and remove those. Cash drawer, warn when below. This is for a certain amount. So if we want to say $500 or $5,000 or $5 million, whatever you want to put in there, the system will highlight your cash drawer red like it is in the upper right-hand corner here, and notify you through text message or any other means that you have set up when your cash drawer drops below a certain point. Below that is COM port. So if your cash drawer is equipped with a USB cable, it will automatically generate a COM port. And once it's plugged in, this is how Nexus knows to open that drawer. So if you don't know which one it is, I don't, and I don't even really have one plugged in, but if I did, it would show up here. All you have to do is simply click a COM port, click test. If your drawer opened, then that was it. If not, go to the next one, go to the next one until your drawer opens, and then you know that that's your correct COM port. Allow secondary dispenser. You're not going to use this. That's why it says not typical down below. I'm actually not even going to go over it because you're just not going to need it. This is typically for older devices like the Arca 2000 or Arca 2600. So we're going to skip that. Formatting options. This allows you to set all kinds of different rounding, like if you want to round up to the nearest nickel or dime or quarter or dollar, whatever you want, you can turn that on or off. Weight format. So if you want to do like certain decimal places, I'll explain some of these real quick. Integer means that there's no cents at all. It's just going to be dollars. Floating precision means that it is, almost. I mean, I'm not going to say this because mathematically it's not correct, but nearly infinite number of decimal places afterwards. Same thing for money format. You can control those separately as well. Weight format. It's roughly all the same thing. So this is for net totals, like your net weights and things like that. Money format for prices, money format for totals, and weight format for totals. You can control them all separately. Generally, you're going to want to do, I would say 3 or 4 decimal places. If you do anything less, you have to consider the fact that for you to delete decimal places, rounding has to occur. And for rounding to occur, even in a minute amount of money, at the end of the year, it could equate out to thousands or tens of thousands of dollars that you're either shortchanging customers or you are losing on your own. And I would go as far as to say you're probably going to lose it on your own. So more decimal places is better. Company logo. So if you want to have a company logo at the top of your receipts, you can do that. The only rule with this really is that it has to be a certain size. So let me open Paintbrush here. So if we do a little logo here, right? So this is 100% there. So if you've got your logo here, this is going to be huge on the report because the report's not expecting just an image. The report is expecting a header. So you're going to want to make sure your header is bigger. So about 600 pixels, I would say, to there. And you can still have it in the corner, but this allows you to have additional header information instead of just a logo. As long as you follow this rule, your images will be, properly placed on top of the PDF files. And this way it'll allow you to have longer logos and things like that. All right, so we're going to go to the scale purchases tab. So scale purchases, your scale ticketing system has all kinds of different ways that it can operate. There's about every setting in here for everything anyone has ever requested that they wanted or they didn't want. The ones that say recommended above them, this is what comes pre-installed with Nexus. These are the ones that we would always have included. I'll go through some of these right now. So when selecting a customer, automatically load open ticket set. So what that ultimately does is under scale purchases, we have our open ticket sets here. So Bruce Wayne right here has a ticket. If Bruce Wayne comes in and he gets his name scanned without anybody knowing that he has open tickets, it will automatically open his existing transactions. So they can just be continued, right? So when we do this, no one has to worry if Bruce Wayne already has tickets open. And that's really the way Nexus is designed. It's really the way we want you to use it. If you want to turn that option off, I'll show you what happens. So we're going to turn that off. And now we're going to select Bruce Wayne. Now there's no tickets. So now if we do a ticket for him, and he comes back again later that day, and we do a different one for him, again, it didn't continue. And the reason for that being is because we have that option turned off. And now we have additional ticket sets with Bruce Wayne's name on them. Re-enabling that setting will allow it so Bruce Wayne can just continually come back and have his name scanned, and then his open transactions will show up. This is really the typical setup. If you want to turn it off, then you pretty much know what you're doing as far as how your yard's going to operate. Vehicles which are salvage are intended for export. This is pretty much something that just goes on your booking sheets and your bills of lading to say that they're going to be exported out of the country. It adds some additional verbiage and contractual stuff, but ultimately, unless you're sending vehicles to China or India or something like that, or Mexico or your U.S. or Canada or back and forth, you're not going to worry about this. Show products UM instead of pounds. This is if you just don't want to see pounds, you want to see gross ton or net ton or whatever it is. Single click to open a save ticket set. This is just a preference. Some people have a predisposed habit of double clicking everything they see on a computer. This is to alleviate problems with that. Always select the following product. This is for this computer only. So if this computer is always doing tin and you don't even want to be bothered to select a different material, then have that selected, and Nexus will never bother you about selecting a different material. And again, that's per computer, so if you want to set that outside at your CAN scale, you can do that. Print ticket automatically when scale ticket is paid. This is pretty typical. So as soon as you hit that pay button, it'll print a ticket. Really, really useful, especially if you have an ATM machine, because it actually prints the PIN number at the bottom of the ticket. And if you want to control whether it uses a barcode or a PIN number, that is under external services here. And then ATM machines, and you use PIN mode or use barcode. Up to you. And that works in conjoint with that. Print 2 receipts when the transaction's paid. A lot of people like to keep a copy for themselves. That's what that does. Use intelligent sorting of ticket in the ticket list. Ultimately, what it does is it sorts your tickets in a number of ways, typically by time and typically by whether or not they have a tare weight. And so if you look at all these tare weights, no tare weight tickets are at the top. They're all 0. That's why they're highlighted yellow or orange or whatever it shows up on your screen. And this is kind of warning you, like, hey, this guy went across the scale. There's no tare weight on this. You need to, take a look at it before you approve it for payment, because obviously some of these transactions can get pretty big. If it does have a tare weight, it'll be at the bottom. It won't be bothering you. But ultimately, the system is doing this so your first tickets or your incomplete tickets get sorted to the top, and they're a lot easier to find. You're not going to have to monkey around with a list of tickets. Okay, going back. Allow search by customer ID. You can turn it off. I wouldn't. A lot of people like to use their customer IDs, like this CID field, customer ID. So like this guy's 825, so we can just enter 825 in here, and it automatically pulls him up. Sort products by product name, not ID. So what this does is in your product list everywhere. When you go to do a ticket for somebody, all of these are sorted not by the ID number, but they're sorted by their name. And same with your product list. You'll see they're all sorted by name. And if you turn that off, they get sorted by ID number instead. Warn user when saving a ticket if tare weight is not entered. So if you have employees that are just not paying attention to whether there's a tear weight or not, this ultimately will prevent them from paying out. It'll just bother them basically for each ticket that doesn't have a tear weight, and they'll have to self-certify by clicking a button that they know it doesn't have a tear weight, and they're either going to fix it or they don't care. Include weight conversions on ticket. If you turn this on, then essentially what it does is, instead of just showing pounds for everything, down below it'll put some additional text in there saying, this is how many gross tons, this is how many net tons, this is how many metric tons. So your truck drivers don't get irritated that they have to do the calculations themselves. Only show the weight conversion applicable to the ticket's unit of measurement. If your product's in gross tons, it'll only show in gross tons if this is selected, rather than show gross, net, and metric. If it's in net tons, it'll only show net tons, and so on. Automatically use the last vehicle information from a customer's previous ticket. So if you've got multiple people that are driving one vehicle, this is pretty useful, so you don't have to keep re-entering it. Or if you just want, to be pre-filled off of the last ticket. This is not really typical, but if you need it, you need it. Turn off statistics for a customer. So in Nexus, there are statistics, so we'll turn that on. And I'll select, I don't know, let's select myself. Oh, I have to restart Nexus. But anyways, so what this will do is it'll show statistics like this guy's been in, 500,000 times. He's brought in, $10 million. The last time he was in was last week. So you can be like, oh, hey, Matt, I haven't seen you since last week. And whatever the case is. Or if the guy says, I'm a great customer and I want a special price, and you look at it and he says he's been here 3 times in the last 50 years, then he's not a great customer. It has its pros and cons. The cons are a lot of people buy computers that are just really not capable of heavy lifting, and that's what I would consider a heavy lifting function, especially as your business grows. 5-10 years from now, and it's constantly sitting there crunching numbers, and you don't have a server, and you've got some Core i3 computer or something terrible, it's not going to run great. So ultimately, you can turn that off and it speeds things up. Enable editing of ticket total field to derive an average price per unit. This is something that is used more often than not in catalytic converters, where they go get the prices from someplace else. There's this app floating around. I don't know the name of it, but this app ultimately gives them their prices for the catalytics, per whatever. So they're able to actually go into the total field and just type in, $700 and select a catalytic. And Nexus will do all the math backwards, for the pricing, for the quantity, for the weights, everything like that. So there's no manual stuff that needs to be done. It's listed under not recommended because it's really like a special use case, and ultimately should just be used for that. Show driver name instead of customer in open ticket sets. Not really usual, not unusual, but ultimately in your open ticket sets here, customer name. So instead of showing the customer name, it will show the driver name, whoever brought in that material. And it will be the last one, I think. I don't know. Don't quote me. But yeah, not a very typical situation. Show inactive customers in customer lists. So this is really for legacy. It doesn't do anything in modern versions of Nexus, but back in the day, we used to have an inactive customer ability, which we still do. But after a customer wasn't there, 6 months, a year, whatever, they would get marked inactive, and they just wouldn't show up in lists anymore. You still have that ability, But Nexus now, because of all these custom lists and things like that were developed for performance, Nexus is able to load up 100,000 customers, in fractions of a second. So there's just no performance issue anymore. So this is really just for legacy, not something you're going to use. Verify the check number before allowing payment. This ultimately, when you go to write a check, it pops up and says, hey, are you sure this is the check number? This is for people doing a lot of check payments when things go out of sequence or there's a void or whatever the case is, or you're just paranoid that things are going to run out of order. You can check that and that'll solve that problem. Pre-select customers' most commonly recycled material when they arrive. This is a pretty cool one. If you have a guy that brings in copper radiators all the time, and he comes in and you could probably assume that he's going to have copper radiators. So Nexus will automatically select that product as being copper radiators. So on the off chance that he has something else, you can select it, but it still eliminates a couple of clicks and a couple of steps if somebody's methodical with what they bring in. And we do recommend this one, as you can see here. Apply special pricing to all tickets after a customer change. But ultimately what they do is they have drivers come in and put things under their own names. And later they do a customer change to the company that they work for. So what they wanted is when the customer comes across the scale, have it automatically look up the special pricing for that customer, for the main company, and apply it to all the tickets. Because when the drivers come through, they don't have special pricing. They don't get any special deal. In fact, they may not even know what pricing's being handed to them at all. And so this updates all the ticket with the special pricing. We did put caution next to it because I just don't like it. I just don't like it. And I feel like it's a little bit of a backwards way to do things. I feel like it can cause some problems. Once a ticket is brought into the system and it's quoted a certain way, I think it should stay that way. But it's not my yard. So that's ultimately what this does. I do not recommend it. And yeah. Do not include Saturday as a business day for tag and hold. That one's fairly obvious. When you do a tag and hold and Nexus prints out a little tag and hold sticker, don't include Saturday as part of that. And obviously if you're open Saturday, then do not include Sunday. Same thing as the previous one. If you're not open Sunday, then don't. Show the customer's last fingerprint image when the customer selected. As far as I know, this is completely legal, so go ahead if you want to. If you don't want to get a thumbprint every time. If you want to get a thumbprint every time, go ahead. But the only thing I would do is just check with your local law enforcement on the requirements of that. But that's completely up to you. Always pre-select the following customer. Especially useful for your can area. So when people come in and you just want to ring them up as cans, then let's have that selected. That way it always rings them up as cans. If you ring your people up as tin or whatever, then go ahead and do that as well. This may be an issue on some computers if you also have, when selecting a customer, automatically load open ticket set. So if you do pre-select following customer all the time, also turn this one off. Okay? So that way you can have multiple copies of it. And if you're wondering, well, how am I going to know who the can guy is if there's 50 can guys? Number one, Nexus takes a picture of them. And number two, you can print a receipt for them outside, which is barcoded. So when they come in, they just get the barcode scanned and Nexus automatically pulls their ticket up. Or number three, which is my favorite suggestion, don't do it. Just put them in under their name, scan their ID. I know you don't have to. Put them in under, pink shirt guy or something. Whatever you want to do, it's up to you. But if this is useful to you, just turn this off as well. Disable auto-populate city and state when adding customers. So when you go to add a customer in Nexus, it automatically pre-fills the city, state, and zip code because it assumes that they live right around you. This just saves you a little time if you're manually entering people, which I hope you're not. And if you are manually entering people, call us, get a barcode scanner. Let us save you a lot of headache and hassle. It'll put everybody in for you correct every time. No manual entry at all. It'll solve all your problems. Require PIN login after each customer. So this is a pretty cool feature. This, if you have theft issues with your employees, or you're worried that, they're, tricking tickets or whatever the case is, if you turn this on, it requires them to enter a PIN number in when they go to deal with a new customer. And where you can set this PIN number is under settings and then users, and PIN number right here. And I have people ask me, well, Matt, what keeps them from just giving somebody else their PIN number? And to that is a very simple answer. Make them use their social security number. Problem solved. Print and process check automatically. Don't show preview. I don't know if I like this feature. It's completely up to you, but essentially what it does is when we go to write a check, pay using check, you get this cool preview window where you're able to change the check date. You're able to change who it's going to, the memo. The automatic process skips this step completely, just generates the check and moves on. So just less clicks. Okay, let's go back to this. Flip-flop expiration and issue date on licenses. This is kind of a loaded thing, but on some driver's licenses, there's an issue with the issue date and the expiration date being mixed up. And this flips the two of them around. This is not going to work in all states. This is not going to work for all years of licenses. This is not going to work for all scanners. The brand new version of Nexus tries to figure them all out for you behind the scenes. So this is likely not even a useful option anymore. But it works in older versions where, like, Ohio's a big state where there's an issue with them. Certain years of Florida licenses. You shouldn't really need this, but it just makes Nexus go into an extra kind of step, like say, hey, well, let's figure out the license thing and flip-flop the dates. Scale purchase contract. This is where you can put any contract you want in there. And that appears right above the scale ticket signature line. If you have done what I just did here and erase this, or you botched your contract and you want to just regenerate, you can hit use default and everything goes back to normal. Feel free to change this however you want. Bottom of receipt messages. If you just want to say something nice to your customers, put that here. At the bottom of the scale ticket is instructions for the online portal. If you want that to go away for people who you don't want to give the portal to, just click here. Interface. This is basically for booking containers to disable certain customer types, to change the bill of lading number generation, to turn on or off automatic camera capture. Same thing for purchase orders. Just kind of basic stuff that people want to control. Reports. As the report should exclude or include unpaid transactions. So especially on your summary reports, when you go to generate them, if there are tickets that are open and have no tear weight, sorry, no, that's a completely different feature. Scratch the last 5 seconds from this. All right, so ask if the report should exclude or include unpaid transactions. So what this ultimately does is allow Nexus to warn you if unpaid transactions are on certain reports, like your summary report. If you haven't paid them out, it's possible that the guy is still out in the yard and hasn't been teared out yet. You don't want it affecting your reporting, so this will ultimately, prompt you and say, hey, there's unpaid transactions still out there in the wild. Do you want to include them or not? And you can deal with it then during report time. Included items purchased on previous days but paid within the date range selected. On your report, there will be an explanation of this anyways, but some tickets may have been created days and days and days ago, but paid out today. This is ultimately going to give you control if you want those included on your report. Okay, rules. This is very straightforward. I don't think I have to go through any of these, but do you have to, include a driver's license? Yeah, each day or just permanently, or must fingerprint be scanned or that kind of thing. All this stuff is pretty straightforward. Like my state prohibits cash payments in the amount of, $50 for more than 3 days. Yeah, I mean, ultimately this is all just generally pretty straightforward. I don't think we have to go through any of this stuff. If you want to disable certain fields and things like that, all those are here. If you're being bombarded because you're not taking in driver license information properly, and it's bombarding you and saying, hey, these driver's licenses are expired, and you're just tired of it, you can click right here and turn that off. That's the one that's probably the most popular request in here. Print tag and hold tags automatically. So rather than you having to click a button to generate the tag and hold tags, this will prompt Nexus to do it automatically. If you have a label printer set up in the software, then it'll send it to the label printer. And ultimately that is under printers and tag and label printer here. All right, we can move on to cameras now. So under cameras, this is the master list of cameras for the whole system. It's unlimited, so you can have any number of cameras you want per computer. And Nexus does a really good job of telling you if there's any kind of problem with your cameras. I'll be completely honest with you. Cameras go down, they slow down for any number of reasons, including getting too hot in the sun, getting too cold in winter, or because they just don't feel like it that day. They really do have a personality of their own sometimes. And what you have to know about IP cameras is it's not just a camera. They are computers. They're often running Linux on a little microcontroller board. I mean, they're a full-blown computer, all integrated in with themselves. They've got a web server that runs on them for settings. So they can be finicky. So ultimately, Nexus wants you to always know what's going on with your cameras. It doesn't want you stuck and frustrated and giving up. So we've programmed the system to do a lot of these, troubleshooting steps for you. So just by going in cameras, Nexus immediately tells you what cameras are having a problem by highlighting them red. And it tells you what happened. So in this case, the camera's offline. It's disconnected from network, or its IP address has changed. Ensure cameras always have static IPs. What's a static IP, you ask? Static IP is one that never changes. So when you connect to Wi-Fi, it uses something called DHCP, which is Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. And ultimately what that means is every time you connect, you get a new IP address that essentially is like a phone number for your device. That's all fine and great. When you unplug your router or disconnect from that router and you reconnect, you get a new IP address. With cameras, you don't want that, because if you have to reboot your router, and you will at some point, or that camera comes unplugged or needs to be restarted, you don't want it getting a new IP address, because then you'll never find that camera again. Nexus will have no idea where that camera is. It'll be pointing to an old IP. It's problematic. How do you know that your camera has a static IP address or DHCP? DHCP addresses are typically low. So if you see this like a .6, that's low. You want that last number to be higher. And so when we set them up as static, we give them a much higher number, like .140 or whatever. In your Nexus install instructions that you got when you purchased the software, it goes through all of that as far as how you connect your cameras, how they work, how to set up your IP addresses properly, all that stuff. So when you originally set up all your devices, all this is already taken care of, and as long as you did that, you're fine. If you have an IT guy come in and he buys a new camera or sets a new camera up, give him this guide. If you don't have it, contact us, we'll send you another copy. As long as you follow these steps, you're always going to be fine. If there's any kind of other issue, like your camera password is wrong, it's just not responding, or it's responding too slowly, whatever the case is, Nexus will give you the status here of what the problem is so you can solve it. Okay? If your cameras stop working and you need help, and your IT guy is going to come out and charge you $600 for being there all day, and he's, whatever the case is, and you just don't want to deal with that, we give you the ability to troubleshoot this stuff on your own. We have created an entire guide, which is here. If you just click camera's not working or showing up, the guide comes up, and it is a step-by-step flow chart that you can follow that walks you through every statistical possibility of why that camera isn't working. If you follow this, it's the same steps that we're going to do to solve them. If you follow it, you will find your issue. If you just don't want to deal with it and your IT guy's, not helping or can't figure it out, just call us. We'll work it out with you. So let's say if there's any number of situations where your camera no longer can be found on the network, or you're just setting them up from the first time, you have no idea what the IP addresses are, you can come down to find cameras on network, and Nexus will scan your network entirely and report all the devices it finds that are compatible for Nexus. And so it's doing it now. This only takes about a minute. And if you're connected to multiple networks, you'll see right here that it'll actually change to a different subnet and scan all your networks. And so Nexus is coming back with some devices. So it found my backup device, it found my router. I don't have any cameras set up, but if I did, then it would automatically show the IP address here, and it would tell you what make and model is here. This window is designed to stay on top, but allow you to still work with your cameras. So you can grab this window and move it over to the right-hand side, and you can grab your camera window and move it over to the left-hand side. And we can come right here and we can just add another camera. And we just do that by clicking Enable. Trigger on event. So these are any number of events that you want Nexus to work with. So gross weight entered, tare weight entered, scale tickets printed or paid, whatever you want to do for this camera to be triggered, select that event. If you want it to only respond to a certain scale, like scale 1, scale 2, scale 3, you can select that as well here. So we'll do gross weight entered. Now IP address. We know the IP address because we already have them over here. So we're going to enter that IP address here. Username and password. That's whatever was set up on the camera when you originally set the camera up. If you didn't configure a password, 9 times out of 10, it's just admin with no password, or it's admin and password is a password. For D-Link user, or for D-Link cameras, I think a lot of times it's also user and then admin. If you threw the box away and you just don't know, you can actually just go Google D-Link or whatever the brand is, default camera password, and all that stuff is on the internet available for you. Make and model. All those makes and models that Nexus supports are listed down here. So just choose the correct one, click test, and that'll test the camera, and it'll give you a picture if everything's good. And if it doesn't give you a picture because something's not good, then Nexus will start walking you through those steps. We've built everything in here to cover every situation that could happen without you needing to contact us or pay an IT guy. Of course, you can do both, completely up to you. And Nexus does give you all the individual information on each setting, just so you don't get lost or confused about anything like that. And I do want to just take a moment to point out, if this isn't how you found this video, all over the place on Nexus, there are little buttons that say, how do I use this? For every feature of the software. If you click that, it'll take you to this point in this video or another video, or any other videos that may explain whatever feature you want to look for. So keep an eye out for that. And also, when you are using the software and you put your mouse over the over certain buttons, you'll see that a little question mark shows up there. And if you just put your mouse over that question mark, it says, what's this? You can click that, and it'll also take you to any point in our instructional videos to teach you how to use these features. These are really, really helpful if you're trying to train new employees, or you just simply, need information on how to use this stuff. So, all right, I think we're pretty good with this. So let's go ahead and move on to printers. So these are the different printer setups that you can have. For your receipt printer, obviously Epson is the default that we want you to have. Just select that there. Tag printer, you can select that. ID card printer, this is for Texas when they have to print the plastic cash cards. So you can choose the corresponding one there. Reports, we really don't use this anymore. This is for legacy applications. And going back to checks real quick, you do have the ability to use different trays. So if you've got a multifunction printer, that's what that's for there. Secondary thermal printer, if you select this, then it will automatically print to like a second receipt or third receipt or whatever the system's set up for on those secondary printers. Down below are a couple printing preferences like customer license plates, customer group, ticket description. So if you want to print the notes, print condensed receipt. Some people don't want the receipt, being 1,000,000 feet long. Clicking that cuts that thing down to like maybe a third. And if you just want to take the signature box off, you can do that as well. Factory settings. I'm not going to go over this because we really want you to call us before you do this. This is if you want to erase certain parts of the program entirely. I'm not going to go over this, so call us. E-waste. This is ultimately for remapping. So in our e-waste program, when you purchase certain items and you regrade the status, like to whatever, like you grade the condition, you can have it automatically transfer that invoice or that inventory over to another inventory item. If it gets destroyed, then that can go to like waste. If it gets disassembled, that can go to something else. If it's for sale online, that can go to like some other category. So this is really just automatically remapping. You don't have to do this. It's not typical, but if you want it, it's here. External services. This is typically for all kinds of different things that are outside of Nexus. So one of them being the Nexus website pricing upload. You input your FTP username and password, which you would get from whoever does your website, and your website address, your domain name. And you would integrate our website code, which you click here and it downloads automatically. I'm trying to open it, but I can't find it on my other screens. So just do it on your end. But that'll give you the website code, and it'll automatically upload your pricing up to your website, and you can have it match your website. You can style it however you want anytime that there's a pricing change. The Nexus portal is, we didn't go through this during the demo, or you're not a current customer or whatever the case is. We have an online portal, and you can click here to unlock. And then once you log in, I'm going to do this on another screen so that I don't give away any information. And once you log in there, You have an entire portal where people can go and generate scale tickets. They can generate Excel reports. They can see uploaded documents. You guys can upload documents back and forth. It's pretty robust. They can even link multiple locations that they have. So if they've got even 50 locations, they can select one or many locations that they want to generate reports for, review tickets, or whatever the case is. So if you want your customers to have that ability, you can sign up for our portal. It's free. And then you can choose how you want to upload. Live and instant is typical. So I would always do that. Not end of day, not manual. Because honestly, you're going to forget. I know it. You know it. So let's just do live and instant. Upload pictures also. This is not free because of the amount of images that scrapyards will accumulate. So we'll come up with a pricing structure for you, and we'll deal with it that way. Snapshot license scanner. I want to preface this because this is one of the biggest calls that I get are from people whose license scanner is not working. Snap shell is not scan shell. One starts with the word snap, the other starts with the word scan. They are not the same thing. They're made by two completely different companies. They work in two completely different ways. Scan shells are a box with a camera in it. And it has OCR technology, which means it'll read the characters off of the license and put them in the system. They're unreliable. They're expensive. They're like $1,000 to $2,000 depending on which of my competitors are selling to you. We really don't want you using them at all. We have the barcode scanners that we sell that are flawless. We really do not recommend scan shell. If you have a scan shell device, however, you can turn it on here. If you want it to read the license information, then you can turn that on here. If you don't want it to read the license information, you just want to use it for pictures, click here to turn that off. Simple. Ohio DHS upload in the do not buy list. Put your information in here and then click enable do not buy list, and Nexus will automatically scan the do not buy list anytime somebody comes in. Once it scans them, you will see a green shield if they are allowed to be purchased from. You will see a red shield if they are not, and also the system will start flying up every sort of warning light possible, and it'll tell you that you can't buy from them. If you want to see what they did that was illegal, you can click the shield and it'll show you. It'll also show you here as well, but just going through some of the options. Let's go back to external services. Visa gift card system is through a company called WRL. It's also known as OmniCard. They might have a different name by now. Not a lot of people use them, but this is where you put the information if you want to use them. If you decide that you are using them, you will have a button here that says pay using Visa check card. And once you click that, it'll automatically register a Visa check card for your customers. ATM machines. We support machines through ATS. We do not use them anymore. We do not recommend that you reach out to them. We do support ARCA 2600s and 2000s, or at least we did. I think those companies have completely discontinued those, so we're not going to guarantee that we work with them, but you're welcome to try it. We do sell our own ATM machines. We have two different models now at this point. We recommend that you call us to talk about them. They're priced about half of any of our competitors. They're really meant to completely replace your cashier person. They can serve up 4 different coins, I think, 4 different types of bills. They can hold $262,000. They handle, taking a picture of the face, the signature, the thumbprint. They can be set up for. They print the receipts. They do everything. They're multi-language. They text message you. They can even check with you if a transaction looks funny. It's a great machine. We really recommend that you purchase machines from us. If you want to buy one, you can just click this button. It'll take you to our website and you can purchase one. Really, really, really great investment. If you want to turn the ATM machine on or off, you can do that here. If you want to link it to the cash payment button, you can click here and do that. What that does is it makes this button also pay with ATM, not just this button. Some people want to have the ability to do both, but generally if you have an ATM machine, you can just safely click this link to cash payment button. That way your employees don't just keep clicking it and have to void out transaction and it starts frustrating you because you have a million things in your reports. Leads online, Alabama ACGIC, you can put that information in here, and when you're ready to upload the leads online, we have other videos that talk about that. You can go ahead and do so. I should probably talk about it now though. On your compliance, under compliance on your home screen, you'll see leads online here. Double click and you can choose one date or multiple dates if you want. Click generate transactions and then click upload. That's all you have to do. If you need to review and edit that file, you can click here to do so. That's completely up to you. Changing that file may be illegal, so you may want to check with law enforcement before you do anything that can possibly be illegal. All right, back to external services. You sign up here with Autodata Direct. Now, signing up for them is one thing. So don't just sign up for them and then say, oh, we're good to go, and then assume that your vehicles are being uploaded, because they're not. You have to not only sign up for them, but you also have to sign up for their bulk upload service. And once you do that, then you put in the information they give you here, and then you can upload your vehicles. I don't know why Add123 doesn't kick back an error if you don't have an account. I don't know why, but it doesn't. So do not assume that they're receiving your stuff unless you're signed up for batch upload. Then we get error messages back. When you're ready to upload, go under compliance, Nvidi's reporting. You can choose your dates, but anything that you haven't uploaded will just show up here anyways. I'll show you what that looks like. So there'll be all these vehicles here. Okay, so now let's look at scales. So scales are simple, especially if you follow the Nexus install instructions that you were given when you purchased software. If you don't have them or you deleted it, then just get a hold of us and we'll supply it to you. There's a section under here about scales. And yeah, this should be it. It explains how to set the scales up. You can do this all on your own, unless you're missing a port, and then you're going to have to contact the scale guide to come and put one in. That's all covered in this guide. So there's different ways that you can connect this. Just follow the guide, and then once you come into Nexus and under settings, go to scales, and you can see all your scales here. Just select a little area here, hit edit selected scale, and here you can name the scale. So you can name it whatever you want. And that's how it'll show up in Nexus. Under the connection details, this is all covered under here, but I'll cover it anyways. You'll get a list of things, including COM ports. And you'll notice that each port, each scale will have a COM port number. Okay, so you see COM3, but COM3 has a bunch of different settings. These are all the possible settings for COM3. We've done this for you out of convenience. These are all the settings for everything under COM4. These are all the settings for everything under COM5. If one of these settings doesn't work, just go to the next one. Just be aware that when you change these settings, because Nexus has exclusivity over that port, you have to close Nexus and reopen it. Nexus cannot reopen that same port with different settings. Especially because it's sharing it to other computers. So just try one setting and then go down to the next one. And again, if you have three three scales plugged in like it would appear that I do. Com 3, Com 4, Com 5. Those are the three scales. If your scale guide gives you numbers like 9600, 8, N1, that's what these settings are here. So we've just done this for you out of convenience. If you have an IP address for an Ethernet scale, then you put that IP address in here. If it's on a different port, then you put comma and then the port number. That's it. Again, anytime you change the scale settings, you have to close Nexus completely out and reopen it. If there's a scale connected to a different computer and Nexus is currently open, you will see that scale feed here. Choose what scale number that you want to connect to. So scale 1, scale 10, whatever the case is. But you'll see the different computers here. And it'll read, Nexus will read that scale wave from that computer. Down below, this is a not recommended setting, but to automatically enter weights. So what this does is over a certain, no, it's not even a certain number. So any weight that's on that scale, it'll automatically enter in the gross field or the tare field, wherever it's welcome. I don't like this feature because it prevents your ability to handwrite a weight over it. So if you need to go make a correction, you do not get the ability to do that. And it'll frustrate you because you can't understand why. You keep pushing keys on your keyboard and it's not doing anything. That's because you've selected this. Don't select this unless you need it. This last setting is actually pretty cool. Let's say if somebody over 3,000 pounds comes across your scale, play a tone. So Nexus will play like a ring or something, and you can customize the tone if you want to, but it's like a ring tone, and just to tell you that somebody comes across a scale. So if you don't have a camera or your scale house is facing some other direction, which for some reason happens sometimes, this playing the tone tells you that somebody's on that scale. If you get confused about any of this or you need to re-jump back to this video, just click how do I use this and it'll bring you right back here. Under devices, this handles the rest of the peripherals. So for driver's license or document scanner, we want to select Twain in 99.9% of these cases. If you have a snapshot scanner, you can select that here. This is to get an image only from the scanner. Again, scan shell is not snap shell. Do not select snap shell if you have a scan shell scanner. WIA, really don't select this unless we tell you to select it. It's Microsoft's Twain knockoff, and they abandoned it, and it's horrible. Just don't. Logic 9. There was a period of time where we were producing scanners. We're not doing that anymore. However, what that scanner essentially was an IP camera, a miniature IP camera inside of an enclosure. You can use any IP camera. So if you want to use a D-Link camera, then go get a cheap $60 D-Link camera and select Logic 9 from here. You can put the camera IP address in here, which again we covered under cameras. If you don't know where it is, you can hit find cameras on network and it'll come back. The username and the password. So now when you go to click scan driver's license in Nexus, right here, it'll take a picture using that IP camera that you configure here. Why would anybody want to do that when they have a perfectly great scanner? Number 1, scanners are slow. Number 2, scanners are getting kind of difficult to find. Number 3, your scanner's broken and you just need something to get you by. Or number 4, people come in all the time with ruined licenses and they just won't pick up in the scanner. This option is not beautiful because you have to screw a camera into the wall, a certain number of inches, whatever the case is, or hold it in your hand. But it is so fast that it's almost worth the unprofessionality of it. I have lots of people that just get tired of buying scanners, they get worn out or whatever the case is, and so they do this option and they love it. But obviously when somebody comes into your office and they see what you're doing, it looks funny. Oh well, sometimes, right? So that's how you do it. So if you use this option, again, you choose Logic 9. If you don't, pretty much only use Twain. Unless you have a snapshot, then choose that. Fingerprint scanner. The only option we support is the Secugen Hamster. They're FBI certified, so we stick with them. They do have issues. The number one being Microsoft likes to replace your driver. I don't know why. It just does. And your fingerprint scanner will stop working. It's inevitable. If you don't have the driver, click here to download it. If you don't have the driver, click here to download it. And once you're ready to actually reinstall that driver, click here. And our website will pop up with video instructions that are extremely simple. I mean, what's this take? A minute and 30 seconds to get your scanner working again. Down below, the signature pad alternative. Topaz sells, I'm just going to read this because this is the case. Topaz makes a cheaper model of signature pad which has no LCD screen but looks nearly identical to the others. If you perhaps purchase that model, the model number will start with TS instead of TL. In that case, click this checkbox. That's basically it. If it starts with TS, select this. If it doesn't, select, don't. That basically covers everything for settings. So in other videos, we're going to go ahead and go through different things. This is a pretty monumental configuration window and is responsible for everything that you need to do to make your system operate how you need to and to make it operate flawlessly. If you have any questions at all about any of this, if you need any help at all, just give us a call, 424-222-8080. Or alternatively, we have text message service as well. You can do that. You can email, and we'll be sure to help you. Thank you for watching.